call the Tuesday, February 27th, 2018 meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. And I'll ask my colleagues on council to stand as Reverend John Cole, the minister of Centenary Methodist Church, will give our invocation. And then I'll ask Councilman Bill Moody to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council. Good to see you all again. Praise the Lord. Good day. I had somebody come to the church and said, "Why do you call yourself Sanitary United Methodist Church?" I said, "Well, it's not Sanitary United Methodist, it's centenary." And that centenary means 100. So all Methodist churches that were either born in 1884 or were celebrating a 100th year of ministry in 1884 were named centenary. And there's 11 centenary churches in the Virginia Conference of the United Methodist Church. So we've been serving our community for well over 200 years. Last month, we had the opportunity to invite Monumental United Methodist Church to come and use our space as they were out of theirs from the fire on January 3rd. And that was a real honor to serve them in that way. So that was great. This month, we're going to be going to prison ministry up in Greensville Regional Correctional Center, and we'll be serving our community there by supporting that prison ministry at Greensville. Lots of every time I go up there and work with the guys, I always have several guys from Portsmouth who I'm working with. Most of them will be released, and when they go through our program, the recidivism rate is about reduced by 50%. So that's that. Now, we also have a Clothes Galore and More coming up on March 24th, and I want you all to come on out. I got the shoes that I'm wearing right now for $1 2 years ago, and they were almost brand new. So come on out to Clothes Galore and More, and then, of course, our bunny breakfast and Easter egg hunt on March 31st. Open to the community. Anybody who would like to come and have breakfast, get a picture with the Easter bunny, you guys could do it. And bring your own basket. So it's BYOB, bring your own basket. Amen. But it's just an honor to be called again to pray with the council. So let us go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to be together, to come together, to do the business of Portsmouth, Virginia. Lord, we give you thanks for the beautiful city that you have bestowed upon us, for its history and for all the beauty that is around us. Lord, we thank you for the citizens that make the city what it is. And Lord, we thank you especially tonight for the businesses who provide economic activity and jobs for many of our neighbors and friends. Lord, we also lift up all those in our community and in our city who are first responders and our teachers and all those who are in education. Lord, we ask a blessing upon them tonight as well. And upon our city council, Lord, we ask that you bless them tonight as they gather here to meet. We ask, Lord, that you give us your wisdom and give us your patience. Lord, give us your power, that we might be able to come together and discuss the issues that are before us in a kind and gentle and informative way. Lord, give us all that kind of peace and strength that we will need to have a successful meeting this evening. And Lord, again, we thank you for those who have stepped up to serve our community in so many different ways. These things we ask, or I ask, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask my colleagues to indicate their presence for electronic roll call by hitting the yes button. And Madam Clerk, we have 100% attendance.
Yes, sir.
Before we get into the agenda, as many of you may know, we lost one one of our citizens this week, Ricky Price, who portrayed Colonel Crawford, kind of an iconic person for the city of Portsmouth, and a big supporter of Portsmouth. And in this memory, I'm going to ask if you would join me by standing in a moment of silence as we honor the late Ricky Price. Thank you. We have the consideration of the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of a call meeting of February 12th, 2018, the minutes of a call meeting of February 13, 2018, and the minutes of a regular meeting February 13, 2018. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve that's been duly seconded. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And that motion carries. Which brings us to unfinished business, which is item 1869, which is the consideration of a conditional use permit on second reading. And Madam Clerk, would you read the resolution, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution granting a use permit, UP 1716, to the Water Group, Inc., to develop and operate a mixed-use development consisting of commercial space and not more than 59 units of multifamily housing, together with associated facilities and amenities at 818 County Street.
Thank you. In order for us to consider this matter, is there a motion on this matter of any sort?
Move to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to deny, and we do have citizens, people who have signed up to speak on this. And Madam Clerk, before this, will you read the protocol for speakers?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you. And the first speaker is Barry Randall, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Simmons, members of council, Dr. Patton, Barry Randall, the Prentice Park section of Portsmouth. I am speaking tonight, I believe, of a grave injustice to the people in the south side of Portsmouth. I was kind of mind blown, Mayor Rowe, when at the last council meeting, how you repetitively constantly asked, is there anybody else for or against this project? Because I was sitting over there and I was saying to myself, come on, John, wrap it up. But then I didn't realize that the fix was in until you disrespected Vice Mayor Simmons, because although we may not always agree with her vote, one of the things, and I think you should have remembered when you were city manager, even if she votes against something, she always let the public know why she's voting no. And if we go back and look at the tape, sir, you cut her off because basically, you know, you had already probably talked to her, so you didn't care about what she had to say or her reason for voting no. You just wanted to deny this. I'm concerned because I did some looking into some things. Dr. Patton, you have about 80% of city workers that can't even afford to live across the street or any of the other high-rise developments that's coming to the city. So I'm kind of mind blown that you all would not want affordable housing for your entry-level teachers, your social workers, your police officers, the guys that dump the trash every week, they want to live nice as well. So I'm sitting back thinking, and I'm not going to deal with the race card because I think the real issue is you all need to be educated when it comes down to affordable housing. I don't know if that word scares you, if you all think that it's going to be a bunch of black people that's coming there, because at the end of the day, sir, $45,000, there's not a lot of folk in the city making that type of money. So my issue is I was watching a funeral service of Rosa Parks, and I saw where Reverend Al Sharpton said that Jim Crow had gotten slick and he slipped his son in there, so that's who we was fighting. And in my study time and devotion time today, I said, I don't even think we're dealing with Jim Crow Jr. I think we're dealing with Jim Crow III, because the difference with him is he's much more cunning than his father and his grandfather, because he will give to black causes. He'll feed black children at their church. He'll even let his sons play on the same Little League team as the black kids. But when it comes down to equitable and affordable housing, he'll vote no. When it comes down to funding public education, Jim Crow III will also vote no. So I think that it's very important that the citizens at home pay attention, because I'll be the first one to admit that I gave Jim Crow III, or I helped give him the keys to our house here in Portsmouth. But I'm going to do my best to make sure we take the keys back, because something is wrong when we have a PRHA board that you all put in place, an economic development team that you all put in place, and they want to green like this, and you all say no. And right across the street from the post office, we had a lot of citizens from Old Town complain about that high-rise development that's coming in reference to the quality of material that's being put on that development, and you all still did what you wanted to do, and you green-lighted that. And you have a group of individuals that's coming from Norfolk, that's coming from Ohio, that's saying, hey, we want to invest in your city. And you all know how you all really feel about education. And if they're willing to allow this project to come off the tax roll for us to generate $1.2 million in taxes, and we are a scrap cash city, what's the issue? What's the real issue that you all don't want this to happen? I can assure you that individuals still are going to have to pass a background check. Their credit is still going to have to be up to par in order for them to move down there. But again, Jim Crow III, he will give to certain causes, but when it comes down to moving in his neighborhood, he said, hell no. The issue is, it's downtown, and you all want to help those developers. Because if you work at the Naval Hospital, after a while, they can't live in Norfolk. They can't live in a city that they have to come through a tunnel or cross a bridge. So I understand that you all want to fill these $2,000 a month apartments and $1,600 a month apartments. Councilwoman Simmons, thank you for being true to yourself. We'll deal with you, Councilman Moody, this November, and the other two in 2020.
Our next speaker is William Conley, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilperson, and the staff, and all the citizens of Portsmouth. I'm here tonight, and I'm in favor of this project, and I would like to tell you exactly why I'm in favor of this project. I will read what I have to say so I don't stutter and annoy you. As I said, I live in the city of Portsmouth, and is located in the largest deep port in America. It has been reported that it supports over 280,000 jobs related to the port. Your answer as to why you voted down this project, you did not say that you had a concrete signed use for the land. But what you did say, as was pointed out by Councilman Whitaker, move it elsewhere. It is not good enough for downtown. That is an insult to every blue-collar worker in the city of Portsmouth. The shipping industry handles over 3 million containers a year, half by railroad, and means that 1.5 million trucks a year in and out of this area. Just think of all the support business that depends upon that industry. We are also in the business of building and repairing the most tactically advanced ships in the world. They are floating cities, self-contained to support the men and women who live on them for months at a time. The people in Portsmouth who build them are highly skilled people. They are very well trained. They do one wonderful job. But now the industry that supports that tells us that there will be need 3,500 new skilled employees in coming years. And I'd like to add this as my own personal opinion. The firemen, school teachers, police officers, and thousands of shipyard workers all live in the $45,000 or less pay scale. As a citizen who lives downtown, I would be more than happy to see all those people move into the downtown to support all the business already here. However, they cannot afford it. And that is why I'm voting for this project. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Clyde Toller, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, citizen at home and citizen here tonight. I vote for this housing, this project to be named after Dr. Holly, and I highly vote that you change your vote and build this place down there. Now, I came here about 2-3 years, twice I came here and asked you about naming the parkway after Dr. Holly. They didn't do it, did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you still haven't did it. Now tonight, this is a Black History Month. He was black. Why can't you vote tonight to let this gentleman here build the apartments down there? I guess I'm the only one here, nobody, because I ran a lot up and down there when it was all black district. Mr. Moody, you didn't tell all what you said about when they wouldn't let nobody build there. But I'm just going to reconnect something that when this thing came to council before, there was an individual in the housing authority had offered this land to IHOP. But when IHOP found out they couldn't get it, they were going to sue the city. So this is why the city put IHOP out there and didn't sue. And they terminated the gentleman, I think, at housing that did that. You turned it down, and then again it came up. But they wanted to put a hotel there with pool hall and all. That was the churches. There's 6 churches right there in that area. They voted against it, and it didn't pass. Now we got something good here. Here's housing. Good for low-income people, like the two had stated before me. If you don't work at the Navy Yard, there's nowhere else around here you can make $30,000 to $40,000. We got apartments now around here, nobody in them. Some of them been empty now going on 3 or 4 years, because one is near me. But I want to see this place, and I'm surprised at the people of this city that wouldn't come up here. Yeah, I'm down here tonight. I'm strictly down here because Dr. Holly was a very good friend of mine. We attend the same church together and everything. He put this city on the map. And now we so that we can't even name a dog kennel after Dr. Holly. So let's take the night, think about this, and let's go back. And you think about what you're doing and to the people of the city of Portsmouth. All I'm asking you to do is take this and you go and think about this. Suppose you was making $20,000, $30,000, and you want to live close to downtown the way you work. You can't. Because if you're not making $50,000 or $80,000, you can't live if they put something else there. This property has been sitting there over 20-some years. You get no tax from it, we get nothing from it. And we got a lot of property around here like that. Give the planning commission, I take my hat off to you. Y'all are very good. You did your job. And then when I see 3 or 4 people sit up here and turn down something that everybody that you appointed approved it,
and then you say no. This is ridiculous. There's a lot of people talking about it, but I want the people to stop talking about it. I want you to come down here and talk to you. Stop talking about it. Come down here and talk to you. Don't me be in the street telling me what to say, because I'm not going to say it. But I'm going to tell you from my heart, these people that put a lot into this, they're sitting here right behind me. And they're back here again. So tonight, let's send them out of here with an okay, and let's do what's right and not what's wrong, and put some on this property that's vacant. And get together, this is the last night for Black History for this month, name this project as they are doing after Dr. Jim Holly. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Pam Phillips. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. Again, I'm for this project. And I have very little in common with the demographic that would be living there. At this point, between federal, state, and local taxes a year, I personally pay over $18,000. But that doesn't mean that somebody that only survives on that amount shouldn't be able to live close to an area that's safe, has restaurant, has industry going on, is potentially close to their work, so that there's the benefit of it. To run through the numbers, at $18,000 a year gross, that means a person working 52 weeks, 40 hours a week would be making $8.64. For a one adult household that's at $45,000 a year, you've got an hourly wage of $21.63. If it's a two-person household, same $45,000 a year. Both individuals are averaging $10.80 an hour for their wage. These people still deserve housing. Any financial advisor will tell you that for a person to be able to afford everything that they need, they should only be spending 25% of their income on housing. So at $18,000 a year and a rent of $650 a month, we're still talking about 43% of that person's yearly wage goes solely to rent. It's staggering. I'll be honest, I've never had to live that way. But that doesn't mean that someone else should be able to live safely, be able to raise their children. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Wendell T. Green, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council persons. My name is Wendell Green. My company is WTG Design Architects in Chesapeake, Virginia. However, I live in Virginia Beach, but I was born and raised in Norfolk. And Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I recall seeing you when you were running for mayor, and I shook your hand because I was the judge for the Shriners Parade, which I do every year. I think you remember shaking my hand. I was running up and down the street every year. That's what I've done for the last 7 years. Now, I'm saying this because I consider, even though I live in Virginia Beach, even though my company is in Chesapeake, and yes, I was born in Norfolk, I still consider Portsmouth my home. And the reason why I do that as an architect, first of all, we're dreamers. And when we dream as architects, we look at the continuity and unity of what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with here, ladies and gentlemen, is just a small beacon of respectful housing for people here in Portsmouth. I know so many people from my alma mater that were born and raised here in Portsmouth, and they had to start somewhere before they could make the $50,000 and $60,000 jobs, incomes. So what I'm saying to you tonight, this project is a project that is not what we call low income, it's called workforce. And you need to define what workforce means. That's what keeps you going, your workforce. And for a workforce people to be close to the waterfront, it gives them respect. And I want you to think about that. Those people that would be living there will be some of your senior citizens, will be some of your people that work in the Naval Hospital. There will be some people that are in the military that we all have respect for. So I want you to think about that. So as an architect, yes, I'd probably make $1 or $2, but I am a mentor of young people that want to get in my profession, which is very difficult to get in. So I want you to think about that. Even though I went to Booker T. Washington High School, a lot of my mentors are at IC Norcom for a reason. Even though I'm from Norfolk State University, I'm a consultant to Hampton University in architecture. So I want you to think about this thing. We want the continuity of our regent to work together, and we definitely need just this drop in the bucket of less than 60 units of decent, respectful looking housing. And I'll make sure of that as an architect. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Mark Godolgi-Yatrowski. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I spoke to you on this topic 2 weeks ago. I sent you an email today, which I hope you have all perused and reflected on. And I'm not going to cover the same ground as last time. As a previous speaker pointed out, your hand-picked board of Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority supports this. Your hand-picked planning commissioners support this. Your planning staff and the staff of PRHA support this project. When I shared this podium with other speakers in the public hearing 2 weeks ago, every citizen who came up here, except one, supported this. So I'd like to see what the room looks like tonight. Anybody who is here tonight in support of this project, would you please show your support by standing? So it looks like there is a 4-person minority on council relative to the other board members and the citizenry who have come out to show support for this project. It's time. It's time to put something productive in that space. It's time for the city to be receiving revenue from a location that has been a bare spot for 30 years. If you really believe in economic development, if you really believe in reducing the burden on the taxpayers in this city, then how about bringing a contributing parcel into our tax base? Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Robert Smith, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, I'm speaking kind of funny this evening because I just left the dentist, so bear with me. I am also a representative of Old Town South Civic League, and we support this particular venture. The property has been sitting there for so long that it's about time that something positive comes to the city. Norfolk has taken advantage of this particular situation, and there's no reason why we shouldn't, in Portsmouth, have something that doesn't cost the city anything whatsoever. So we are definitely in favor of the project. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Teresa Smith, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Teresa Saunders Smith, and I'm a resident of Old Town South. Not only am I a resident, but I also own rental property in Old Town South. In actuality, I live less than 1 block from the proposed project. I'm excited about this project and believe that the city will be taking a huge step in the right direction by approving this use permit. I recently read an article in the Virginia Business where it stated that cities in Virginia are scrambling to provide more affordable housing in its downtown quarters. It is the belief that this is the way to attract millennials to the downtown. Who are the millennials? They are the young educated workers who are in search for walkable, cosmopolitan, workforce price housing. This article further stated that the average renter in our city, sister city, Norfolk, earns about $33,000 a year. I would guess that Portsmouth is even lower. This workforce includes our teachers, police officers, firefighters, and city hall workers. It even went on to say that corporations and businesses are following these young millennials in search of finding young educated workers for their workforce. So why wouldn't we want them in our downtown? In 2015, the University of Virginia published their demographic study of Portsmouth. This study showed that less than 17% of the people who work at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard live in the city of Portsmouth. The average salary of these workers was $35,000. I believe this further shows why there is a lack of workforce price housing available in the city of Portsmouth. I was listening to the telecast of the last council meeting where one of the city councilmen said that we should look at possibly putting an urban market there. All I want us to do is to look at downtown Norfolk on Freemason Street. They put an urban market in that area that had probably 3 times the density of housing units as we have in Portsmouth, and it failed. Let's learn and not repeat the mistake of others. It was stated that this property is a gateway to our city. I agree, and what better way to show it by having people come through the tunnel and see a vibrant community of citizens working, walking, running, biking, and enjoying all that Portsmouth has to offer. How fortunate are we that a developer of the caliber of WODA wants to invest in our city without it costing the city funding or outsourcing dollars on this site that has been vacant for 20 years. I implore the members of council to vote yes to to this use permit to ensure that this time Portsmouth will be in the forefront of urban development.
Our next speaker is Jeffrey Butts, Jr., and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council. This is my very first City Council meeting. I've watched this on YouTube. I'm also a millennial, so I thought maybe I should come in person and kind of say a few words. I also practice architecture, and it's fascinating to me to see how fast Portsmouth is transforming itself. And I got to be aware of this project very recently. I sat in on a downtown design committee meeting, and the developers were there proposing this project. And I thought, oh, this is great. Perhaps maybe I could actually have a place to afford to live near the waterfront, or at least, you know, in downtown. Being a millennial, practically either you live with a lot of roommates or you live with your parents. And this isn't bad, you know, it's just, that's the way it is, you know, and I work my butt off, you know, and I earn what I work my butt off for, you know, and it's nice to also have variety in a dense location because you get a lot of economic mobility as well. I enjoy walking down on the weekends to Portsmouth because I always visualize the possibilities that lay before us, and this is also one of those tremendous opportunities that we have. I grew up in Portsmouth. I went to Islington High School, graduated, studied architecture far away, came back 2 years ago, and now that I'm here, I see so much potential, and this project I can see is one of those cornerstones in the arc of development. Certainly it allows, and you know, I educated myself also. I sat in on a commercial real estate for women luncheon, and they were talking about low-income housing tax credits and how that gets dispersed throughout the country from HUD. And it's kind of mandated for developers to do that when they have housing. And low income doesn't necessarily mean concentrated poverty. It actually is the total opposite. It's decentralizing poverty, so that means that you have a variety of a mixture of people from economic levels, and that indicates that you're going to have people who have fair opportunities to all kinds of things together. Crime will drop tremendously, obviously. You get a lot of vibrant things happening, and we want this in our downtown. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I've got a lot to say, but I can't think of it all. It's just that I can't let this opportunity pass me by. I mean, you know, when I look at the rents down here, it's like I can afford it, but, you know, it's like, but I need my car to drive because the infrastructure is not the best, really. You know, so I can't walk really anywhere, and I want to get on the bus, but it's not cool for many people. Like, I lived in D.C. for so many years, and it was great taking the metro, taking the bus. It was fashionable, but, you know, here it's kind of like a matter of circumstance, and it shouldn't be like that. So I'm not saying this project solves all those problems, but it's a cornerstone in the arc of development. And give it a chance, you know. I mean, what do we have to lose? You know, we've got so much potential. And HOK, it's a very big architecture firm. I read that they did a study, a comprehensive study also, a master plan in 2007. It was fabulous, but I don't think it went anywhere. And there's a comprehensive plan that Portsmouth is developing as well. I'm not sure if those are moving or not either, but I don't know. I would really like to see how this is going, and I would say please consider this project as being a yes, because you clearly have the support from a good majority of us here tonight, and we echo, I think, the opinions of many persons of Portsmouth. So thank you guys very much.
Our last speaker is Peter Youngblood, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Peter Youngblood. I feel like Custer surrounded by the Indians. I'm the guy that's going to say, shoot this thing down. And here's my reasoning. We're all here in favor of housing for our workforce. I don't think anybody could argue against that. It's that this is the wrong location for this particular project. This was put together with with blinders on. It's about money. It's not about what's best for the city of Portsmouth or our citizens. It's about where a developer can make money. We have a number of locations, maybe as many as a dozen, in Portsmouth where this would be much better suited, some as close as 2 blocks away. I come at this from a unique perspective in that I live in Old Town. I think that all of the rest of you who have talked about this live someplace else, maybe in a different city. But
Mr. Youngblood,
I've
address
been in
council,
Old-
please.
Yes, I've been in Old Town for 18 years. Within 50 yards of my house, we've got Section 8 housing. We've got teachers, we've got policemen, we've got firemen, we've got nurses, we've got shipyard workers. 2 doors down from me is a carpenter. I think we've got a lot of diversity. We have diversity by race, by occupation, by education. We've got retirees, we've got young families. So I think that we need more diversity with this in our gateway is a mistake. We could certainly use it about 2 blocks away, but this particular location is our front door. It's our opportunity to make a good first impression when somebody comes into Portsmouth. And I think that we could do a whole lot better at that location. Remember that these apartments, a 2-bedroom apartment of 800 square feet is tiny. A 3-bedroom apartment with 1,000 square feet is tiny. These are not places where people are going to stay for any length of time. I don't think that we're going to see a stable group of residents here at all. So I urge you to deny this. If it comes back at a different location, I would come up here and support it wholeheartedly. But this is the wrong project for this particular piece of land. We should save this for a higher and better use. Thank you.
We've had 10 speakers tonight, and I thank each one of you for your interest in our city. Thank you. We now have before us a motion to deny. Any discussion on the motion? The chair recognizes Councilman Smith.
Excuse me. Just a point of order, Mayor. In our previous public hearings, you usually open it up to see if there are others who did not sign who might want to speak.
This is not a public hearing, Dr.
Whitaker. During our second reading.
It's not a public hearing.
So you're not going to
No,
do as we've done in the past?
I'm not.
All right. I just want to see if that's the consensus of council.
You put my decision up for
I
appeal.
want to check if there's a consensus of council, if there are others who did not sign up. If they're not, so be it. If so, I think you should hear from them.
The chair has ruled that this is not a public hearing. Does any councilman want to hear from any other members of the public other than Dr. Whitaker? Okay. My ruling stands, and the chair recognizes Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Having been come to this part of it late in the game, there's a lot of time that's transpired before my tenure here. And a lot of it's confusing to me as to why we're here now, looking at trying to stop this. I'm a very strong advocate for workforce housing, and I feel this particular project is something that we need. I've been actually working with some folks that want to come here and set up a workforce development office here in Victory Crossing. Also, knowing that I know at least 25, maybe 30 years, this parcel has been vacant. Also, to my understanding, there aren't any inquiries, there aren't any parties interested in developing it, to my knowledge. I could be wrong on that. And from what I see, and I thank the developer for getting the floor plan, and from the way it looks outside is, to me, it looks very well. It's going to be very well built. It's going to have a very nice appearance. There's going to be a commercial retail component. It's just very difficult for me to vote against or to try to stop something like this. I think it's something that we need. So, and that's why I intend to vote in support of it. I think it's something that we shouldn't let go. I don't feel like we're desperate either. I understand highest and best use, but it just sends the wrong message, I guess, when we're saying we don't want workforce housing downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Vice Mayor Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a lot to say at the last inquiry on this matter, but some of the folks tonight have said things that made me think also. I think Mr. Butts put it best when he said, what do you have to lose? I'm a great supporter of workforce housing also, just not at this location. I never said not downtown. I said not at this location at Effingham and County. There are several great spots I've recommended to conduits who came to call on me on behalf of Mr. Watts that I think would be far better served. That location at Effingham and County has been empty for some time. The fact that it's been empty doesn't mean we have to take the first thing that comes along. It should be a commercial use coming into the city. Some other people talked about the port workers and the shipbuilders who could live there. Well, the fact of the matter is most of the people who work in our ports make way too much money to live there. You know, we have more engineers working in the shipyard than they do at Langley Air Force Base. A lot of the folks coming in the shipyard make way too much money to live there. It is true. Our firefighters, entry-level firefighters, police officers, and probably at least 50% of the people that work in this building could live there. But they could also live in a comparable establishment on High Street, which is where this should be located. It's a great project from a fine company. It's just the wrong location. So I will stay with my no vote.
The chair recognizes Councilwoman Lucasberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I spoke on this issue last time we had the hearing, and I am in support of the project. I applaud all of the speakers who came up and spoke so passionately and with information that would give rise to why we need a project of this statute in Portsmouth. As the liaison to the Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority, as the liaison to the Planning Commission, and helping to bring about our comp plan where a lot of our citizens gave their input. We're taking what you're saying as part of what you would like to see come to your city as well. When I was campaigning and decided to take a seat on this council, part of my slogan was your voice for effective government. And I'm not voting my interests or my feelings. I want to vote for what you would believe you would like to see in your own city. There was a study done that the average income of citizens in the city of Portsmouth is $47,000. And of course, this workforce development housing would account for persons making $45,000. It's the perfect median for a project of this stature. But we keep saying that not here, but someplace else, but have we even introduced some other place for this project to be taken a look at? We keep saying not here, but someplace else, but when, where? We're not taking a bite off the first thing, but I think that this is a great thing. I applaud you all for being here, and for that reason, I will be voting with you in support of this project. One of the speakers stated that the developer want to just make money. Who doesn't want to make money? And, you know, why can't a developer that our planning commission has brought to us, our PRHA has brought to us. They have given us an option, and we're taking your opportunities to speak up against for what you want to see, and we're telling you no, and we're telling our planning commission no, and we're telling our PRHA no, and we're telling the comp plan, which they have taken months to put into ideas, telling everybody no. So I'm kind of disappointed in my colleagues, but I stand with you in support of the project.
The chair recognizes Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, we have a second reading for a reason, and I think we've heard from that reason tonight. People have a chance to digest what was presented at the first reading, and they can come back and weigh in on it. Well, that also goes for city council members. We can vote at a first reading, have discussion, and we can go back out into the city and talk to folks. We can chew on it, as the saying goes, and we can come back and we can vote the way we feel. I can recall probably 10 years ago when I was, I think I was still chair of the chamber, or it might have been my colleague, Ms. Simmons, but I think we both went on an interregional visit to Nashville, Tennessee. And it was pointed out by our counterparts in Nashville that they were struggling downtown. They were struggling because they didn't have enough feet on the street, rooftops, any way you put it. They didn't have enough people that lived downtown to shop at their shops, to eat at their restaurants, and to try to keep everybody in business and keep that tax revenue flowing. At the first reading, I second Ms. Simmons's motion, and I was discussing it with a colleague the next day or two, and I said I did so reluctantly because I don't know of any business waiting in the wings that would be going to that site. I received an email today from a gentleman, and he reminded me the IHOP that was going to that location. And he was right. IHOP was going there. Unfortunately, the city didn't want them there. They said they had something better lined up to go there. Well, that was in 2002. And the something better, I ride by there frequently, and I'm still waiting to see the something better. The something better might not be there while I'm still around to see the something better. That was such a hot topic at that point in time that we told the IHOP folks no. The thing we didn't do, we didn't offer to find them another location. Thanks to the public and some council members, we went public with it. In fact, the IHOP speaker came to a council meeting and pretty much gave us down the country that he was blindsided that they were pulling the location away from him. So fortunately, we found him a location. Everybody knows it's on Frederick Boulevard. Free pancakes today, by the way. But the bottom line is I had asked, after that our first reading, I'd asked specifically, what do we have in the wings to go there? Almost the same question I asked back in 2002. And other than silence and This one has said they might be interested, this one might be interested. Well, looking at the assessment presentation tonight and the revenue that is expected to be generated, I don't think we can keep relying on something might. Something might hadn't materialized. And we need two things. We need people downtown to keep the businesses afloat, and we need tax revenue. And we need to fill up some of these empty parcels. You know, we've certainly made large strides in getting other apartment houses in town. This is not low-income housing by any stretch of the imagination. So I think to refuse this without having that something might be around the corner, I think we were fooling ourselves. Perhaps the something might needs an additional location, but we got something in the hand, and bottom line is, I'm gonna support this tonight.
Please.
Don't need applause, and the gentleman who said he'll get even in November, I don't want no congratulations. I'm not even sure about a November. So, but tonight I'm gonna vote what I've got to live with myself.
Are you offering a substitute motion?
I'm offering a motion to reject, I guess it would, Madam Clerk, reject
the procedure, colleagues.
Add a
You move to
item
approve the project.
item to the,
No.
okay.
The procedure is if any member of council desires to offer a substitute motion, that motion gets a first and then a second. Then we vote on that. And that, whether that goes up or down, determines the fate on the first motion. And let me explain, ladies and gentlemen, we operate under the Robert's Rules of Order. And you'll notice that the first thing we do when an item comes up is to get a motion. And I will cut off any member of council who tries to start the discussion prior to the motion. And so that's the rules that we follow. And you'll notice that if you go back, and you'll see it in the future too, that the first thing we do is get a motion. So we do have a motion on the floor, and Robert's rules allow for a substitute. And is that what you're doing, Councilman Moody?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. We have a motion, which is the substitute. When you state your motion, I assume it's to approve the resolution?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a discussion on the substitute?
That's wrong. No, I second early when he said it. It's correct.
All right. No, the motion is to approve.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's,
The motion is to approve.
all right. For everybody's benefit, but particularly my colleagues on council, we have a motion that was made and seconded. We started the discussion on the motion. Based on that discussion, Councilman Moody has offered, per Robert's Rules of Order, a substitute motion, which is to approve. And that motion has been seconded, and that is the motion before us now. Does everybody understand? Yes. Any discussion on this motion? Councilman Clark.
Yes. At the last meeting, I voted this down, and for several reasons. The following night, I had several concerns, so I took my own time, and I took the invite of Mr. Craig Patterson, the Senior Vice President of the Water Group. I met with him for at least a couple hours in Norfolk to ask some concerns, because I needed more information for myself. One of my major concerns was, at this point, the presentation that we received at our last council meeting is not the same diagrams that are being shown to the public and everybody else. Whether that was intentional or a mistake, I don't know what the reason is. But between last Tuesday's night and what I have seen presented after that, I have been befuddled. Basically what happened is, on the presentation we received at last council meeting, the diagram we received, the parking spaces, there's 59 apartments at this location. We were told there was going to be parking, 59 spaces for residents, 6 visitor spaces, 1 loading space, and 13 commercial spaces. As we left that meeting that night, I started thinking to myself, well, there was no handicap spaces. You are required by law to have handicap spaces, especially when we're going to have commercial space in this building. I asked that question when I met with Mr. Patterson, and he couldn't answer that question. So as I was counting, I was looking at the diagrams that have been presented to people, and I have found some issues with this. From D.E. Weatherly and Associates, the architects, there are several issues. Anybody that's been in the military or public safety, you have probably heard the term attention to detail. What's being presented that goes out to the Civic League meeting that I attended last week, for whatever reason, there's a page 1, page 3, and page 4. I don't know where page 2 went, if there was a page 2, or if that was an error. If this is a professional architectural company, I would be embarrassed to have this kind of work presented, not to mention on subsequent pages, when you look at page 4, they didn't even spell the word street correctly. As simple as that sounds, but when you look at a professional drawing that says Chestnut, S-T-E-E-T, I have a problem with that. That is some poor oversight in your own company. And then if I was with the Woodard Group, I would be very disappointed, and I'm sure they paid a lot of money for this architectural drawings to have that kind of stuff presented. So I'm very confused, because after this was presented, I happened to be at a Civic League meeting, and Mr. Bruce Watts was there, so I asked him the same question about parking. Because the new diagram shows 59 resident spaces, 6 visitor, 1 loading, 8 handicap, so that only leaves 2 commercial. So if you're going to attempt to rent commercial space in this development, you have 2 parking spaces. I would assume you'd have more than 2 employees, and then you have nowhere for patrons to park. That creates an issue in and of itself. Furthermore, I was asking about the parking spaces for the residents. They said they were not going to be numbered. So you have 59 spaces with 6 visitor spaces, and I can only imagine that more than one person that lives there may have 2 vehicles for who lives in that place. So if I was going to work and lived in this establishment with no assigned parking, and I get off work and I come home and there are 0 parking spaces for me to park in, I can imagine I'd be quite grumpy that I'm paying for that and nowhere to park. So then at that same Civic League, Mr. Watts was speaking to the group, and I was listening very carefully. And there was a quote made that I had a little concern with. The quote he told to the people at the Civic League, he said, quote, "If you know someone that would rent the commercial space, we would give them a good deal because we're in the housing business." That quote told me that it didn't appear that they were actively looking for somebody to rent that commercial space. The commercial space was there because it was required for this location to be a multi-use. So my problem is I told him the same. If I was a business owner, I wouldn't want to rent that commercial space for a business because I have no employee parking and no patron parking. We already have parking issues downtown that we're dealing with currently, trying to make better for the other businesses down there. This would only increase the parking problem. There are only 8 on-street parking spaces on Effingham Street outside of this building. So if you wanted to go to the business or you wanted to work at the business, there's nowhere for you to park at. So that has me very concerned. So with the lack of attention to detail to the plans, I really don't know what's going to be put there, because what we were presented with is not what was shared with the Virginia pilot the very next day. So I just wanted to make all my colleagues aware of this, because this is something that they may not have known before I'm giving them this information, but it's very concerning to have those parking spaces and none but maybe 2 for commercial. So you can have 2 customers at a time. But if you work there, I guess you got to park somewhere else. So I just wanted to point out those specific issues that I have, followed up on myself. I didn't just make this decision once. I researched it. I talked with the company again. I continually looked at the architectural designs and drawings. counted the parking spaces myself because they're to scale. It should represent the actual number of spaces, and it does not support commercials and the residents in this building. Thank you.
Are you seeking clarity from the applicant?
Point of order, he didn't ask for clarity. Can we move forward with the vote?
I've got the floor, and I asked the question. Thank you. Councilman Clark.
No, I've already asked them, and they failed to provide the
Okay,
information.
thank you. Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the parking issue should be something that planning should be able to answer.
Are you seeking clarity?
On the parking? Sure. I think we need to hear from planning.
Madam City Manager.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I'll ask Mr. Robert Baldwin to come up and answer Mr. Moody's questions, if he may.
Good evening. As I believe you're aware, our downtown has a zero parking requirement. So generally speaking, what we are finding is that most lending institutions are requiring a one-to-one for the number of residential units, but that's not a city requirement. However, should someone elect to put in a parking lot, then that parking lot would have to meet all of our standard parking requirements. So even though the parking is not required, once someone makes a decision to build a parking lot, they'd have to meet all the requirements, including ADA compliance with the parking lot.
Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other discussion? Turn my mic on. Any other discussion? Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, we're ready for the motion. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. If you're opposed to the motion, vote no. And the motion carries 4-3. Our next item of business is item 1890. And Madam Clerk, would you read the caption of the ordinance? Madam Clerk.
An ordinance accepting a grant in the amount of $10,650 from the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles and appropriating said funds in the FY 2018 Grants Fund for use by the Portsmouth Police Department to purchase speed measurement devices.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to approve?
Move for adoption.
Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. This matters before us. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
The next item is item 1891, which is the consideration of the adoption of a certain ordinance. And Madam Clerk, would you read that caption?
Yes, sir. An ordinance amending the education category of the FY 2018 Capital Improvement Fund budget to establish the Woodrow Wilson High School restroom renovation project and to transfer $240,000 to said project from the IRC Data Center project.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion? And we do have one speaker, and that's Donna Sy. Ma'am, you've got 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms. On tonight's agenda, there are two ordinances that are going to amend this year's 2017-18 Capital Improvement Program for the Portsmouth Public Schools. The first one, 18-91, it is going to amend for the year 2017-18 the capital improvement plan to do renovations to the Woodrow Wilson High School restroom. The amendment is to transfer $240,000 from the Instructional Resource Center Data Center at 3651 Hartford Street. Just a reminder, there has been no update to the capital improvement plan in the school's budget. This is a problem, as you will notice on the enclosed copy of the capital improvement plan of the Portsmouth School Division in blue on page 129 for the school's budget. The cost is $200,000. The $240,000 in the Instructional Resource Center budget was for cooling and uninterrupted power supply maintenance for the year 2016-17. That project wasn't done as anticipated. Why not? Because the work wasn't done on schedule. Now, someone stated that there needed to be a significant electrical upgrades to the IRC data center that is needed prior to installing the cooling and UPS. The Woodrow Wilson High School budgeted for the restroom renovation for the year 2018-19 is for $200,000. My concern is this. There was no form for the year 2017-18 school board's approved budget explanation of change by category done by the finance department of the school board to let the people know what was to happen before tonight's public hearing. And that example is from the Gloucester County School Division. The school division has a problem managing renovation and maintenance projects, and no one is researching anything or holding anyone accountable. Shame on the elected and the appointed. Thanks for listening.
We have no other speakers, and thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion carries. We have item 1892, which is a consideration of the adoption of another ordinance. And Madam Clerk, would you read that caption?
Yes, sir. An ordinance authorizing the amendment of the overall and third quarter FY 2018 Portsmouth Public Schools General Fund operating budgets and the FY 2018 City of Portsmouth Capital Improvement Fund budget by authorizing the transfer of $520,000 between classifications in the PPS general fund budgets and by further authorizing the transfer of $636,000 from the PPS general fund budgets to the Woodrow Wilson High School restroom renovation project in the education category of FY 2018 Capital Improvement Fund.
Thank you, ma'am. So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to approve?
Sir.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion? And we do have one speaker, and that speaker is Donna Sy. Ma'am, you have five minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. 1892 is the second of the two ordinances to amend the education category for this year, 2017-18, third quarter operating budget. The amendment is for city to authorize a transfer of $520,000 from the administration, attendance, and health classification to the pupil transportation classification of $440,000 and operation and maintenance classifications of $80,000 for the purpose of supporting payroll needs. Again, there was no form. 2017-18 school board's approved budget explanation of change by category done by the finance department of the school board to let the people know what was to happen before tonight's public hearing. Next, the school is authorizing the transfer of $636,000 from the Portsmouth School System General Fund budget to the city. The money is coming from the operations and maintenance classification of $506,000 and the technology classification of $130,000 for the Woodrow Wilson High School restroom renovation project. The prior ordinance, 18-91, already took care of the Woodrow Wilson High School restroom renovation project. This does not make common sense to transfer $520,000 from the administration, attendance, and health classification to the pupil transportation of $440,000 and operation and maintenance of $80,000 classification for the purpose of supporting payroll needs, and then do another transfer from operation and maintenance classification of $506,000 and the technology classification of $130 to the Woodrow Wilson High School restroom renovation project for the Capital Improvement Fund. The renovation of the Woodrow Wilson High School renovation project only cost $200,000. The problem with the school board and the public school division is that there is no structure and no accountability. And let's start with the operation and maintenance department, where there is a request for $80,000 to pay for payroll and then take $506,000 from the department to renovate Woodrow Wilson High School restroom. Look at the school's organization chart. There is one director for 2 departments, human resources and operations. No wonder the maintenance of the buildings aren't done. He can't even do everything. This is the first problem. The second problem is filling in the necessary forms to keep projects organized. No one is held accountable for sloppy accounting practices. Shame on the city and the school division. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion on this matter? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Vote opposed, no. And that motion carries, which brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is item 18-93, adoption of a ordinance amending the city code. Madam Clerk, would you read that caption, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend and reordain Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia by deleting Article 19, Craney Island Study Commission in its entirety.
Thank you. In order for us to consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded, and we do have one registered speaker, and that is Mark Godolgi-Otrowski. And sir, you got 5 minutes.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I came here to oppose what you propose, and the reason for that is even though this commission has been inactive for quite some time, it did serve a purpose and conceivably could serve that same purpose again if there were a need. And that purpose is preserving the property values in the northern part of Churchland. As those of you who've been around for a while may recall, the Corps of Engineers, in disposing of dredge material on Craney Island, was originally planning to build up Craney Island both east and west. And the westward expansion of Craney Island is a detriment to properties that are on the waterfront in its vicinity. A very active group of homeowners got together and came up with the idea of putting together this commission. And they dialogued, to put it euphemistically, with the Corps at regular intervals under the aegis of this commission. So what eventually happened was a gentleperson's agreement that the Craney Island expansion would only be on the east side. But times change, administrations change. We have an administration in Washington that is unconcerned with anything that many people value, anything having to do with conservation of resources. And I think that it's possible that those plans that presumably have been shelved could be reactivated. So I would like us to keep our powder dry and keep this commission in place just in case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor. I remember that discussion on the western expansion. I guess my question is, what safeguards do we have reference the western expansion? And perhaps it would be a good idea if we let the Corps of Engineers know that we're still opposed to that.
Mr. City Attorney.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, as I'm sure you all are aware, we do have quarterly meetings with the Army Corps, the city manager staff, as well as someone from our office is there on a regular basis. So we are in constant contact with them with regard to mutual issues, and we can certainly make them aware of our continued support for their current position, which does not affect the western part of Craney Island, and make them aware that that has been part of a discussion recently.
And I think Suffolk shared that concern as well back at that time.
The chair recognizes the city manager.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I'm going to ask Mr. Daniel Jones if you would come and share regarding the compact, working with all of the military agencies, including the Corps, that should be coming forward within a couple of weeks. If he could, and we've been working with all branches now for almost a year.
Okay. As he comes to the lectern, I'm going to answer
said Mr.
Councilman
Jones.
Moody. You're correct, sir. I was the city manager then.
Excuse me, I have two Joneses. They say I said Daniel Jones. I meant Vincent.
We knew
Thank
who
you.
you meant.
The Jones guys.
And Suffolk was opposed to it. And I think the westward expansion of Craney Island would in fact require congressional authorization.
Thank you, Dr. Patton, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. We have been working with our military partners, not only the shipyard, but the Navy as well as the Coast Guard and Norfolk Naval Base as well. And what we are doing is looking at opportunities where we can work with them to not only expand opportunities for economic development, but if there are partnerships for workforce development, if there are ways we can partner with regard to emergency management, we're looking at ways that we can do those things. And we have a draft agreement that we have been working on, developing for the past year, and we're hoping to sign that soon so we can formalize our partnerships with those partners here in the city.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Ready for the motion? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries. Which brings us to new business, report on boards and commissions, and we have no report?
No report tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Item submitted by council, item 1895. Vice Mayor Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Indeed, we're coming up on first weekend and springtime, so this coming Friday is First Friday, and it's the first Friday concert series of the year. Matt Thomas will be playing the guitar and singing from 5 to 8 p.m. on Friday, March 2nd for the opening exhibit of Portsmouth Here and Now 2 and in print at the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center, which is at High and Court Street. The Friends of the Portsmouth Public Library will have their first of the month book sale on Friday and Saturday from 10 to 2. And on Saturday, we'll have our Antiques to Flea Market, which is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And remember, that's now in the County Street garage because of the construction on London. So enjoy all the first weekend festivities.
Thank you. Report on pending items. Madam City Manager, do you have any items?
There are no pending items.
Which brings us to non-agenda speakers. And our first speaker is, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Llewellyn Smith. And ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Llewellyn Smith, and I live in the Park Manor section of Portsmouth. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm also the treasurer for the American Cannabis Nurses Association. Thank you for the opportunity to address council this evening. As a citizen of Portsmouth, I am so proud that decriminalization of marijuana is included in the 2018 state legislative package. The Virginia Crime Commission report points out several important facts regarding cannabis reform. Generally, more than half of the public supports decriminalization. Arrests for marijuana possessions are overrepresented in minority populations, and even small amounts have dire consequences and strict penalties, which can range from the loss of your driver's license, fines, possible jail time, and subsequent drug testing, criminal arrest, and conviction. But across the nation, many localities have decriminalized marijuana. Portsmouth City Council agrees with the Virginia Municipal League supporting changes in the Code of Virginia, making simple possession a civil penalty rather than a crime. And as a citizen of Portsmouth, I applaud this effort, and I'm curious to see how these changes will come to fruition in my city. Last month, Virginia set itself apart from the nation by passing House Bill 1251 and Senate Bill 726, allowing doctors to decide which patients may benefit from the healing properties of cannabis oil. Let doctors decide is a novel approach that sets a new model for recommending the botanical, as opposed to limited access policies that many areas have adopted. Governor Northam is expected to sign this legislation soon, and with that, cannabis therapeutics can be recommended for any medical condition the physician decides is appropriate within the Commonwealth. Virginia also collaborates with the Joint Commission on Healthcare to study cannabis therapeutics and collect empirical data. And even the Virginia Board of Pharmacy is currently creating emergency regulations for pharmaceutical processors for cannabidiol oil and THCA oil. Given the rapid pace of change in the Commonwealth, I wonder if my city can create the infrastructure to serve this vulnerable patient population by supporting a pharmaceutical processor here. In the spirit of its vision, Portsmouth may be able to embrace the future and create an economic opportunity for its citizens by planning for and establishing parameters that will support the cannabis industry. The cannabis industry is evolving across the nation, both medically and recreationally. Cannabis has proven to be a safe and friendly business in many areas. There's multiple examples of success stories. Opportunities may be created by educating ourselves and city leaders, medical professionals, and citizens about the benefits of cannabis and the positive influence found within cannabis communities. It is right for Portsmouth to serve the medical needs of a vulnerable cannabis patient population. It is also right to secure the economic development of our city. Portsmouth citizens should be leaders for cannabis reform in the Hampton Roads region and embrace the cannabis industry. We should create policies for zoning and distribution procedures that encourage the constructive integration of cannabis industries among the local community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ron Evan, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here tonight. My name is Ron Evans, and I reside in the Rollingwood section of the city. And I'm here tonight to speak on the tax relief program for the elderly. That is, those who are at least 65 or disabled, who have low income at issue is how Portsmouth compares to other cities as far as their income asset levels go to qualify. The numbers that I use are for the exemption part of the program. The numbers stated are the max amounts to qualify for some sort of relief. In Chesapeake, the limits are $62,000 in income with no more than $350,000 in assets. Norfolk, $67K and $350K. Suffolk, $60K, $270K. Virginia Beach, $54K, $350K. These four cities combined average is $61,000 in income and $330,000 in assets, while Portsmouth only allows your income to be no more than $30,000 with assets of no more than $75,000, which means that we're 50% below the average income level and a whopping 77% below the average asset level. The income asset levels have not changed in at least 10 years that I know of when it was on the table. That's unacceptable. Another issue is the lack of transparency in determining what percentage of relief you would get at a stated income asset level. I contacted social services, but could not get a definitive answer. Very vague. Whereas in Chesapeake and Norfolk, you can ascertain this info on their websites. Surely there must be a formula. In Norfolk, you can earn up to $28,000 for 100% exemption and up to $67,000, their max, for a 20% reduction. Chesapeake states up to $22,000 for 100% reduction and up to $44,000 for a 10% reduction. What I'd like to see is a table like these cities have for Portsmouth residents. But what I'd really like to see is for the income asset levels increased, for it has remained stagnant far too long. I know the arguments, but while the city can always find money to do study after study and raise wages and money for what some deem as dubious projects, us old-timers get put on the back burner. I don't think a very modest increase of $5,000 in one's income level and a $10,000 increase in one's asset level would break the bank. At a bare minimum, at least increase one of these. In my particular case, all I have is Social Security for income and what little savings I've acquired. The property tax alone eats up 13% of my actual income. Even if you increase the income asset limits, I don't think you'll have a massive amount of homeowners taking advantage of it. Because of the deadline to file, the earliest one would see any relief would be at 65 years and 5 months. And the latest would be at 66 years and 4 months. Depends on your birthday. I, as well as others, I'm sure, would appreciate your consideration on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tony Goodwin, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tony Goodwin, and I live in the Parkview section of the city. My whole reason for this speech tonight is to more or less talk to you about branding. It was told to me by you, Mr. Rowe, back when we were up in Richmond that we have a three-legged stool industry in the Hampton Roads market, and that is ports, military, and tourism. Tourism is one of the things that we find that Portsmouth has a great deal of opportunity in, and we need to be able to highlight that at the very most possible opportunities. As part of the Business Association took has in the past, in the last 3 grants from VTC, Virginia Tourism Corporation, to come up with a more branding, come up with a branding program that will obviously highlight what we are all about. And Old Town Portsmouth is, of course, what we are set in a backdrop with. Old Town Historic District, as you know, was established in about 1978. And then later on in 2006, we added the Downtown Historic District, which of course encompasses most of the commercial district. With that said, the Business Association since 1956, when it was established, has of course been advocates for leading and making a successful district for businesses as well as residents alike. The guide that you see here is actually a publication, one of the only visitors guides that are produced by Vista Graphics that are copyrighted and owned by the Business Association itself. So it's your official visitors guide and is circulated now throughout 10 visitor centers throughout the state with about 60,000 copies also internally inside the city. Our goal is to simply say this: we've created a brand. We are obviously backing that brand with either funds from the state, from our local budget here, but we're asking for you to look into supporting the Old Town Portsmouth Historic District wayfinding signs that are offered to us because of the rules that these signs in new construction limit. They are obviously available to historic landmarks and national historic districts. So that, with that being said, we can mark highway roads such as 664 in the Harborview Market at the end of Western Freeway, all the way out about 10 miles by their rules, and those are about 120,000 cars that travel that corridor daily. And those are a lot of eyes, and most of those eyes are actually traveling past our back door and going to the Outer Banks. So why not take advantage of that opportunity? Furthermore, on 264, the downtown and midtown or downtown tunnels, and then and updating those areas as well to lead folks to the Old Town Historic District, where we're offering, of course, most importantly, the tourism aspect with our museums, our shops, our eateries, and more importantly, a museum within a museum, and that's the largest collection of antique homes between Alexandria, Virginia, and Charleston, South Carolina. We tout this as one of our biggest assets in this city, and I think it's something we need to be proud of and tell everyone about it as they're driving the interstate roadways. Furthermore, continuing our effort as a business association to make a very successful business district for everyone to survive in and everyone to be competitive with inside this regional economy. You know, we do have, I like to coin the phrase, we are in the midst of the Mid-Atlantic Bermuda Triangle of tourism, where you have to our north Williamsburg, which is one of the biggest catalysts of tourism in the state of Virginia, Virginia Beach right there at that same mark, and then the Outer Banks. And we are sitting right directly in the middle of it all. And so we want to take advantage of that. There are a few people in this audience tonight that will be speaking to you further about this on what we are working towards. I met with, of course, the City Civic League, the Old Town Civic League, and spoke to them about this potential idea, and then also the History Commission just this past week, and both fell into support of this program. It is a cost involved, but it's a one-time cost and no annual cost after that unless the sign is damaged or destroyed by weather or possibly be run over. But at this time, this is the proposal from Virginia Logos that I offer to you, and let's continue to keep the branding effort going.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, Mr. Garvin. In lieu of signs, has the organization also investigated using the software, GPS technology, mapping, as far as making that an item that would come up as people are traveling? I'm not sure the in and outs of that, but I'm just curious if that's something that has been considered.
Yes, and forgive me for not including one of our very own fourth-generation business owners, Max Greenhood, who's Rocket Bike Marketing, who was the one who designed this logo and also helped lay out this. He's his company is a certified Google representative. They, of course, Google Analytics is a very big part of their business model, and we are striving at every cost with some of those VTC grant monies to get our impact out in the virtual world as well. So this is just putting all the dots together, basically. Thank you very much for inquiring, though.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Stevenson. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. My name is David Stevenson. I live at 1 Harbor Court, and I'm here as the chairman of the Portsmouth History Commission. As our city studies, plans, and implements strategies to bring new businesses, new residents, and a new waterfront, one dominant aspect of Portsmouth remains constant and ever-present, and that would be Portsmouth's long history, which is now extending to 400 years since colonial shipbuilder John Wood recognized our location's value in 1620. Our history doesn't need to be rewritten or corrected or to be forgotten. Our history needs to reach more people, especially to the thousands of visitors who travel to our region seeking more of America's history. Among the variety of advertising options that are available to us, to our city, for promoting our history are the well-known brown historic site highway signs that you see along Virginia's highways, among other states. The Portsmouth History Commission supports the Old Town Historic District signs proposed by the Old Town Business Association. These signs, to be placed along the interstates that surround Portsmouth, will bring the stream of year-round visitors that our city must have to grow our vital tourism. We encourage City Council to make this happen as soon as possible to benefit the city as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terry Danaher, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and I'll try to keep it under 5 minutes so everybody can go home. I'm here tonight as the president of the Old Town Civic League, and I'm here to speak in support of the proposal made by Mr. Tony Goodwin. Basically, a thriving city works for all of us. Bringing tourists here is a great idea. We have an enormous amount of history to share with others. One of the things I would say, just look at our churches. We have Trinity, the first church here, St. John's, AME Church with the Underground Railroad. There's a whole Underground Railroad history here to share. We have Hill House, which has been renewed. It's being renovated as we speak. It's a wonderful place and a great attraction. And as Tony mentioned earlier, we have this huge stock of historic housing here that's the largest in between DC, Georgetown, and Charleston. So these are all attractions. These are our assets. And God knows we need all the assets we can get. So the league, Tony made a presentation to us, and we all supported it. And we would very much like to see this happen, and we appreciate your considering it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jackson Lee Shaw. And sir, you have 5 minutes. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Jackson Lee Shaw. I'm a native son of Portsmouth, Virginia. I was born over at the
Sir,
old
can you speak in the mic,
U.S.
please?
Naval Hospital there in Portsmouth and in a Quonset hut. My father was Lieutenant Walter Shaw. He served his country and gave his life in World War II. I began my service with the city of Portsmouth at the age of 13, back in the Dale Holmes old recreation department, sweeping the floor, emptying trashes, 35 cents an hour, and watching the ball field at West Ball Field so that the kids wouldn't get on there and play for it until the game started. I served in the United States Army. I served in Korea. I come from a long line of services. My uncle served this city for now to 40 years as a battalion chief of the city of Portsmouth Fire Department. I was a little bit disappointed and thought I was part of a forgotten when y'all took us off the retirement system. I came here tonight to thank you for all you have done for the Portsmouth family, fire and police, for all of the improvements you made. I can remember when we came on, we didn't have any breathing apparatus. We had a little old mask that got choked up, and we would have a problem with breathing for a long time. I retired in 1984, service-connected disability. I have a lung disorder called COPD. Back then, I never made $20,000, a little over $19,000. What we got then and what they get now, and we thank you for 321, we thank you for the raises that you've given the police and fire department, their new equipment. You have really done well. I'm not a stranger to many on here, including my friend Dr. Patton, and Ms. White, and Mr. Simmons, and Mr. Moody. I also rise for the occasion on a future agenda that's going to come before you. I asked you some time ago about an adjustment for those who retired back when the low income. That evidently is not possible now. I know that you did make a one-time adjustment many years ago for those who have retired who weren't making hardly anything. Our widows, who their husbands retired prior to myself are really suffering. The Retired Portsmouth Police and Fire Association has made a proposal to y'all to grant us a $75 raise. I ask you to direct the city manager to appropriate the funds off our retirement system. I served 12 years on that system. Back when we had money managers, they didn't manage our money too good. We had 5 members of the fire department, police department, and retired members on that board. We did the best we could. We did what our advisors told us that had the financial backing. Times have changed. We are in a growth period in the United States of America. The time is now. I'm asking you as council members, not do it for any pressure we put on you or the public puts on you. Do it for the right reason. It is the right thing to do, and it's the right time to do it. In closing, I'd like to say, God bless America, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. And our last speaker is Garland Alexander, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Garland Alexander. I live at 2913 Tanbark Lane. I want to address the 2018-19 year budget as it relates to cost of living raises. We made a request which is also included in the Local 539's request booklet, which some of you have. Our request for our 2019 budget year is $75 a month for police and fire retirees effective July 1, 2018. This will be for all sworn public safety officers, including widows or widows. We also request that you continue the HRA program, HRA plan as it is now exists. The across-the-board raise amounts to $17.30 a week. We haven't had a COLA in 3 years, counting this coming year. This would be helpful to widows who make $10,000. I have given a copy of the page out of Firefighters Magazine stating that firefighters have a 9 to 12% higher rate of cancers than the general population. We have had 40 cancer-related deaths in Portsmouth retired firefighters as stated by the union president in his request for the second set of turnout gear. The high rate of death because of these retirees did not have breathing apparatus and equipment that firefighters have today. Some of the widows of the men who faced faced with decision between buying food and medicine. This was stated in a news report on Channel 10 Sunday night. This is not just about firefighters. It is also about police officers who have a higher rate of stress-related heart problems. All sworn public safety officers are here to protect the lives and property of Portsmouth residents. We asked the council request the manager to include these two items in the 2019 budget year. I have 28 years of service with the fire department, and this year, on my birthday, February 8th, I was informed that I have cancer. The other item that's not on there came up in the meeting tonight. They talked about the cost of these plans, of giving us the $75 and the cost of the pension systems. What's not being taken into consideration is the tremendous savings that when we did 321, I was here when that came about. There was two reasons for that. One was to save a lot of money in workman's comp cases. The city's self-insured under workman's comp, and if you go back and look at what the workman's comp cases were prior to 95 and compare them to after 95, you'll see that they have substantially come down. And also the other reason was to open the ranks and the hiring process up for minorities, and both of those were accomplished. So I'm asking you, and like I say, that part you see in there about the firefighters, line of deaths, 60% of the deaths on the wall up there, and forget where it's at now, are from cancer-related deaths. And that includes 9/11 and all that. So it's still 60% of line of duty deaths. And we're asking for this for public safety. If you want to give it to the other ones, that's your option. And I would like to have the widows to stand in support of this. The widows. And then the rest remain standing. The rest of it that supports it, please stand. We asked you for consideration on this. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Moody. You can sit down, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Alexander. I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. I think you first did it a couple weeks ago, but to remind us that due to the deficiency in the equipment back in the day, that the cancer rate among firefighters is much higher than the general population. And I think it certainly is registered with this council that we can't let that go unnoticed. And it was certainly no fault of the firefighters back in the day. The equipment was what it was. And in fact, you had mentioned that even the breathing apparatus was much more than a can, that and people weren't aware. You would remove the mask right after the fire is out, when actually later years has proven that that's the most dangerous time with carcinogens in the air. So as you probably recall, back probably about 15 years ago, we institute a verbal policy that we would give fire and police retirees 50% of what general wage employees got as far as a COLA is concerned. We did away with that, which means that y'all have to come back to council now and pretty much beg for something. To this council's credit, I think we've been responsive with the HRA that I think will be continued. But I do think we need to have consideration to do something. Reference your request of the $75. we have learned in the past that that even a bonus doesn't go against our credit rating. So hopefully, if there's a consensus that management will get back with us in the coming weeks to let us know what that something is, Mayor, if there's a consensus to task staff with doing that.
And your question is to direct the city manager to do what?
To come back with what we can do, reference that 75 or some bonus situation that that we could do in this coming budget.
Okay. Any dissent on council? No? Okay. Dr. Whitaker, you've got the floor.
Yes, Mr. Alexander, your issue of the cancer and how quality of life has been impacted because of issues beyond the control of firefighters, but because of lack of equipment, the technology that wasn't available then. Your issue is a broader issue because yours, just like so many others that have been impacted, when we look at education, housing, jobs, issues far beyond their control. And I have supported the calls that you have presented. I just hope that we are even more open to supporting causes as well for those who are in situations because of things beyond their control. And so as a council person, we have to deal with all of that. And I just hope that you as citizens are aware and aren't just limited to seeing that you have been affected by things beyond your control, that there are others within our community that have been affected by things beyond their control.
Yes, sir.
But I thank you.
Thank you. We have no further business, and this meeting is adjourned.